Hello, good people. We survived Atlanta, at least those who were there in Atlanta. I'm going to go on a little rant for 1 second. Welcome to our
Uh-oh.
show. I'm Kendrick. That's Jared. And that's Chris. Welcome to our show. We're going to talk football. We're going to break down week 0 games, both the MEAC and SWAC Challenge and the Delaware State Hawaii game that ended at God knows what hour it ended. We also don't talk about what coaches said today. Today was the first official day of coaches teleconferences. So we're gonna break down what they said, the announcements that they made, and looking ahead to week 1 games that start on Thursday and then the Saturday. But my mini rant, Jared and I and Ken, we all covered the MEAC SWAT Challenge game in Atlanta on Saturday. It was a great game. Came down to the wire. 1-point victory by FAMU. Ken Rashad was almost right. His good friend Dawson Odoms almost pulled off the upset over the favorite Rattlers. But here's the thing, I gotta say, it's too many damn people in Atlanta. Just driving around the city. Atlanta's a nice city. It's one of the best cities in America. I understand why people want to move there. But dadgummit, there are too many y'all there. Like every square inch of that city is filled with a person. I saw less green space there than I've seen anywhere in my life. I grew up in Chicago, where there's practically no green space, except for like parts of downtown near the lakefront. But yeah, man, like no matter what part of the city you go in Atlanta, man, it's like wall to wall traffic. Every restaurant is busy. Every store is busy. So yeah, man, like I don't know how y'all survive down there. I understand why people from Atlanta tell y'all don't come there no more because it's a lot, man. Like it's a pain just to get around, just the traffic and just the congestion that it is, man. But that's my little rant for today. The game was great, atmosphere was phenomenal. That the crowd was really broad it Saturday night, and the bands were top notch too. We talk about all that. So fellas, the first 2 Black College football games are in the books. One had a surprising outcome, the other not so much. But the second game on the slate Saturday night was more competitive than we thought it was going to be. But first, let's talk about the MEAC SWAC Challenge game. FAMU wins it 24-23. They needed a late goal line stand on a 2-point conversion attempt, which we're going to get into a little bit later in the show, to hold on for the win after falling behind by 14 points. A la the Celebration Bowl last year, ironically enough, in Atlanta. The big hero of the night was Daniel Richardson, the transfer quarterback from FAU. He was a game MVP. After a slow start, he threw 3 touchdowns for 286 yards, no interceptions. Mari Gassett, the other big hero of the night for FAMU, had 110 yards receiving, 8 catches, 2 touchdowns. On the other side for Norfolk State, they bludgeoned FAMU on the ground. They rushed for nearly 250 yards. A lot of it was in the first quarter. They battled and fought to the point of exhaustion, literally, at the end of that game, which kind of influenced the outcome of that one. In that regard, Jared and I were both there, covering the game along with Kim Rashad, who's not here tonight. He's still recovering. So Jared, just your observations from Saturday night in Atlanta and kind of like how you thought the game kind of played out.
Well, it was the result that we were expecting, but it didn't happen the way that we expected it to. We all thought that the offense was going to have the slow start, but it turned out to be the defense. They gave up an 81-yard rushing touchdown on the first drive of the game. I was just looking it up, and fun fact, Florida A&M, the longest rush attempt that they gave up last year was 40 yards. It was 40 yards to Prairie View A&M because, of course, it was the running school that they are. They gave up an 81-yard touchdown on the first drive of the game. That just was absolutely insane to me. And then Daniel Richardson and the Florida A&M offense had a lackluster first drive, but you don't expect the first drive to always be great. Then they gave up another touchdown on the second drive. But as we know, Florida A&M knows how to play from a deficit. They did it a lot last season, and of course they did it in this game. Daniel Richardson settled himself down. got within the flow of the game. Him and Jamar Gassett had incredible chemistry, and they just carved up the Norfolk State defense for the remainder of the game, and they got the win. So was it the result that we thought it was going to be? Probably happened a little bit later than we thought it was going to, but Florida A&M reigns victorious, and their bid to repeat as Celebration Bowl champions is look like it's going to be a little bit rocky, but they have the talent to be able to do so.
Yeah, Chris, you watched the game from your home in Delaware, and you were tweeting about it throughout the night. What were your impressions of not only the game itself, but the way Norfolk State played? After the game, Dawson Odom said they put a lot of people on notice with their performance, despite the fact they lost. Did they really do that Saturday night?
To me, yes, because most of us had Florida A&M winning by 2 or 3 scores. And it took a wayward 2-point attempt, an offsides penalty, and a subsequent pass interference to finally put Norfolk State away. They deserve a ton of credit for, number one, controlling both sides of the line of scrimmage because, as Jared said, that Kevon King's 80-yard touchdown run doubled the longest run from scrimmage they had given up all of 2023 on the first drive of the game. So that tells you that Norfolk State has dogs, has big uglies, as the linemen used to call themselves back in the day, on both sides of the ball. And they were pushing Florida A&M around for a good juncture of that ball game. Then, of course, they kind of wore it down, and we'll discuss that a little later on. But if I'm Dawson Odoms, yes, I'm disappointed I'm lost, but at the same time, I'm encouraged that this team was able to take the fight to Florida A&M the way they did.
Yeah, just watching the game, the first quarter especially, you could see that the Norfolk State offensive line really pushed around a whole lot FAMU defensive front. And I know James Cozy after the game evaluated as they lacked gap integrity up front. They got out of position a little bit. But like watching the TV broadcast in the press box, Jay Walker, who was on the call with Tiffany Green, he mentioned like they kind of had a light box throughout much of the first half. And the numbers game always going to be who has the most wins. And you combine that with the way they played on the offensive line, talking about Norfolk State, they really made a lot of tremendous gains, especially on left side of their line, and really gave FAMU fits. I mean, like the same situation played out last in Celebration Bowl where early on in the game, Howard, they really pushed around the defensive line for FAMU, who they have been dominant all season, and was able to build up a 2-score lead in that one before eventually FAMU was able to come back and win that one. So do we think like there should be any concern on the front of FAMU falling behind the way they did to the team they did, considering Norfolk State had 3 wins last season? I know, Chris, you might have said like the road back to a SWAC championship in Atlanta could be a little bit rocky. Like, how rocky could it get if they don't fix how they defend the run?
I think there should be moderate cause for concern, but no panic button as of yet. Because this Norfolk State team, once again, if you guys didn't watch the television graphic, for those of you who saw the game or didn't see the game, there was a graphic that said Norfolk State had 5 losses by 1 possession or fewer in 2023. So this is not a bad football team. I mean, the 3-8. I mean, they always say you are what your record is, and they were 3-8 football team in 2023. But a couple of things that go the other way, they're probably 6-5 or 7-4. But it just says to me that this was less about Florida A&M struggles than it is about Norfolk State knocking on the door. Like, yes, they're picked 5th, but it wouldn't surprise me if somehow or another they inserted themselves into that MEAC championship race this year. I mean, it's not a given, but it would. Yeah, Florida A&M, I have a strong suspicion they'll fix what's going on up front, because I don't know if you're going to see as many, big dogs as Norfolk State had on both sides of the line again this year. Well, they'll find out on Saturday when South Carolina State, the Bulldogs, come to town. But other than that, I don't see too much cause for concern, because it's obvious they have their quarterback. I mean, Daniel Richardson, after that first drive, that throw on the triple coverage, it seems like a light clicked on from him. It's like, oh, no, I can't do that. Let me show these folks why they brought me in. And that's exactly what he did for the rest of the game. So I don't think there's too much cause for concern for Florida A&M.
Yeah, like for me talking about Richardson, like after that pass you just referenced, Chris, he was 1 for 4 for 10 yards and looked like, oh my God, like this is the quarterback they brought to replace Jeremy Musa. But then like their scoring drive they had, the first touchdown drive, it was all sparked ironically enough by a run he made. He got a 17-yard run, then he hit the tight end out in the flat who hopped over a guy, got 20 more yards. Then he found Franklin Jr. for a touchdown to get them on the board. I think that drive kind of really settled him down and settled down the offense because like it was looking like really out of sorts and kind of clunky the first couple of drives. So I think they definitely found their quarterback Richardson. I mean, you don't throw for 7,000 yards at FBS level and be no chopped liver. You obviously something kind of good. So everybody on Saturday night kind of found it out. But from the Norfolk State perspective, we kind of mentioned like, hey, they had been knocking on the door last season in particular, nearly winning these close games, haven't been able to do it. The first game of the season this year, they played a close game that I think they will probably tell you they should have won despite all the challenges they had. So do we think like Norfolk State is a team that's going to get over the hump, or is this going to be a continuation of what happened last season, Jared Hoffman?
I can't imagine that much is going to change about Norfolk State, and I think it's because I can't trust their defense to cover up anything that the offense is unable to provide. This was a great performance by the Norfolk State offense. I'm not saying that they will not be able to consistently produce week in and week out. But when you're going up against defenses like Howard, defenses like Morgan, defenses like North Carolina Central, defenses like South Carolina State, that are able to shut down on your offense at any moment, what is your defense going to be able to do when the opposing offense has a short field? I don't know that I can trust Norfolk State to get a stop when it's needed. Granted, they got to stop. They got to stop in this game. They forced a fumble. So can they do that consistently? Can they get stops when it's needed to stop the momentum of the opposing offense? I'm not sure I can say I can actually trust them to do that. Do I think that Kevon King is going to be a guy that's a 100-yard rusher per game? Who knows? That's been their identity. They are a running team. But what happens when the run game isn't there? What happens when you're behind and you got to take your team down the field for a game-winning drive? You're not handing it off at the 10-yard line when you need to go 90 yards to tie the game. So this team being one-dimensional on offense and me not being able to trust their defense to consistently get stops, there are questions about that. And until I see them be able to do that, hopefully they're able to clean it up during their non-conference schedule. They have East Carolina this upcoming week. So maybe they'll be able to clean it up. But as of right now, I can't see anything that lets me know that they'll be able to be competitive in the MEAC.
Yeah, like a really big conversation coming out of that game on Saturday night was the lack of pass attempts from Jalen Daniels. He only threw 9 passes in the game. He was 7 for 9, really efficient, but only threw 9 passes. And the thinking was, well, maybe if they had to pass the ball a little bit more, it could open up the offense a little bit. But Dawson Odom's kind of pushed back on that at a press conference saying, well, the running game was working. Like, we were going to stick with the run as long as it was working. But when they needed a drive at the end, I mean, like, you have to, like, have the defense be a little bit off balance, we think. But you got to respect the fact that Dawson Odom decided, hey, like, we're going to keep doing what's working. And working was running the football. But, like, you're right, Jared, like, in the future, like, they can't be one-dimensional and try to win these ball games, especially in the MEAC, especially with the way those defenses play. I guess we'll see if Jaden Daniels next time out and down the road is going to be asked to win games with his arm, because everybody around the program says this guy's a dual-threat quarterback. He can spin it. He can beat you with his arm and his leg. And we didn't really see either one of them on Saturday night. He didn't run the ball very much, and he didn't throw it very much. So maybe they were just trying to feel him out a little bit. I don't know, but let's hope that he gets some opportunities to throw the football and show what he can do.
But the thing about Dawson Odom saying that the running game was working, the key word there was. In the first game, in the first half, they had 200 rushing yards. They ended the game with 227. So at some point, you gotta either mask the run game, as in do some wide receiver hot routes or something like that, or like passes in the slot, screens, something to get your receivers some touches to be able to make a play. Because they know the run is coming, especially a Florida A&M defense knows the run is coming, it's easier to defend knowing that the wide receivers are just there to be blockers. So yes, the run was working, but in the second half, it wasn't consistently, and it slowed the game down for Florida A&M, and they were able to take advantage. So the clock became in Florida A&M's favor at that point. So I think they have to find ways to incorporate the pass game more consistently when this starts to get shut down. Because yes, they ran incredibly in the first half, but they were very ordinary in the second half, and that's what lost them the game, was that they weren't able to be versatile with their offense.
Chris, you agree with that?
Yeah. I watched that game on television just like you guys watched in person. And after a while, the first half, it was dynamite. Second half wasn't even a firecracker. Like they literally were just, they had their way with Florida A&M's front seven in the first half, but then all of a sudden they started to, become very, very predictable. And for all the talk about, how they believed in Jalen Daniels, you got to put the ball in his hands. I mean, yes, it's his first collegiate start at a Division I level, but you got to find out if this is the guy that can either hold down the fort while Otto Coons is out or can replace Coons entirely. You need to find that out, and I don't think we found that out on Saturday. And I know you're not going to save that that test for East Carolina. I mean, granted, East Carolina is not anybody to be truthfully afraid of, but just seeing a higher level of competition, you still got to know if this is your guy or not. And yeah, he completed 7 of 9. He had a couple of fair country runs, including the old Philadelphia Eagle tush push for the second touchdown. But you really need to find out if this is a guy that you can lean on for these first 4 games and beyond. And I don't think Norfolk State has a good grasp on that as of yet.
And that's the thing. Like, if you don't think that that he'll be able to get you over the hump, like he's a guy that can give you that balance on offense, why put him in the game to start? You had Cameron Sapp, who is a Florida A&M transfer, on your roster who played 7 games for you last season. Granted, he didn't have the best numbers in those games, but he's a guy that is familiar with your system. He's a guy that you can incorporate to start the game, and if you see some things that you don't like from him, you put in Jalen Daniels. So I'm not saying that Dawson Odom's game plan was wrong. They were very close to winning that game. They were, as you said, they were a 2-point conversion away from potentially being in this game, potentially sending it to overtime, or Florida A&M having to put up a game-winning score. They were that close. So it's not like they got blown out. They were very close. But the fact is that they ran out of gas. And he even mentioned that they ran out of gas. And we will get into that later. But if you don't trust the guy that you have in that line, well, maybe they didn't trust Cameron Sapp either. Who knows? But I'm just curious as to how they're going to levy that situation and to bring in more balance into that offense.
Yeah, we've been beating around the bush about it, but the number one topic after the game was a 2-point conversion if the Norfolk State did not get at the end of the game. They drove down the field after getting the turnover. Kevon King scored a second rushing touchdown to pull them within 1. They lined up for the extra point. It got blocked, but luckily for Norfolk State, at that time at least, the block was taken away because FAMU jumped off sides. And before they blocked the kick, and then Dawson Holmes calls timeout, brings the offense back on the field to go for 2. They attempt a 2-point play. It looked to be like a read option or something like that. Jaden Daniels kept the ball, and he just got stoned at the line of scrimmage. They didn't score. They ended up losing the game because FAMU ran out the clock aided by penalty at the end of the game by Norfolk State. They jumped off sides and committed pass interference on the same play. So fellas, do we think it was the right call for Norfolk State to go for 2 in that spot, or should they just went for the tie and try to keep the game going? Starting with Chris.
Even if we take out the thing that we're still kind of beating around the bush about, that we're going to talk about shortly, it's not a bad call because at this point in Dawson Odom's juncture, he is 11-24 as the Norfolk State head coach. His seat, it ain't hot yet, but it might be getting a little warm. I mean, somebody might be turning it up, underneath it there. You never know. So if you're going to go for the win, then doggone it against the HBCU national champs, first game of the season on ABC, people are probably tuning in expecting to see their nightly news, and then it's like, oh, wait, we got a football game on. This game looks good. Let's see what's going on here. Absolutely, you go for the win. But you don't go for it with a read option for a guy you have not run a read option for all night long. That was the problem. It's either King or another one of the running backs, Xavier Green. Either one of those two. Either one of those two. It should not have been in Daniels' hands. And yeah, I don't hate that call, but what I do hate is that Odoms was forced to make that choice because I watched that on television. I have my glasses on. For those of you who are not familiar, I am very nearsighted, so my television is far away, so I had to wear my glasses to watch the game. But nobody on Florida A&M jumped off sides. Nobody. I looked at that up and down the line. I'm like, who jumped? And I didn't see anybody jump. So granted, the blocked kick probably would have just, taken all their hopes away. But since that was negated, it gave Dawson Owens a second chance. And it's like, do I want to go for the win here? And it's like, okay, sure. I don't mind that call. But at the same time, you don't call the read option when you have not run that read option all night.
Yeah, Jared, your thoughts on that last play for Norfolk State? Like, was it the right play call, or they should have just gave it to Kevon King and just let him try to run it in there?
Yeah, I think you feed the hot hand. That's my thoughts on it. I think another factor that we haven't talked about yet that played into this decision to go for it was they had a lot of problems on special teams in that game. They fumbled a snap on a field goal attempt earlier to tie the game. I think it was when it was 14-17 or something like that. They had I don't remember if it was like a punt or if it was a punt attempt that they had go awry or something. There was something else on special teams that they had go wrong for them. But they had a couple of special teams blunders. So I think that also might have played into the decision to go for it. I think personally, I would have put in I think you go deep in your playbook in that situation. You go with something that Florida A&M is not expecting, and maybe they wouldn't have expected the read option, but they definitely were prepared for it. I think you got to put in some fakes to really mask the play. Like, they really put the play call in their face, and Florida A&M was well prepared for it, and they stopped it right in its tracks without any kind of resistance. So I think they could have masked it better, but me personally, I would have fed the hot hand with Kevon King and trust your offensive line, who Dawson Odoms raved about. So yeah, that's my take. I would have gave it to Kevon King.
Yeah, Dawson Odoms did say after the game that some special teams errors they had made prior to that 2-point attempt did also influence the decision to go for 2. As Jared mentioned, they botched the snap and hold on the previous field goal attempt in the first half, and then they just had a field goal attempt, extra point blocked to try to tie the game. So you're thinking, like, man, like he couldn't trust that unit at that time. But for me, I don't like shotgun snaps from the 1-yard line. I'm sorry. I'm kind of old school in that regard. Like, you only need a couple of inches to score a touchdown. Like, why snapping the ball 5 yards in the backfield to maybe give it to the running back, have the quarterback keep it? Like, you just scored on the quarterback sneak earlier in the game, and you gave it to Kevon King from the 2-yard line earlier in that particular drive. He scored pretty easily. Like, why you having to go further to try to score a touchdown, to try to tie the game up. But yeah, like I agree with going for it, but number one, probably shouldn't have called a timeout. Number two, probably shouldn't have ran a shotgun play with it. But that's what I'm saying. He lived with the decision. The players supported him in the post-game press conference. They said like they wrote whatever he called, so they were supportive of it too. And also, we can talk about it, but he also mentioned one of the factors in him deciding to go for two was he noticed his team was cramping. We saw a couple players throwing up during the game. It wasn't overly hot in Atlanta. I think it was like in the mid to lower 80s during game time. But like he said, like he could notice like his team really didn't have much gas left to continue, and he wanted to try to go for the win right there. Unfortunately for him and Norfolk State, it didn't work out. But are we buying the I guess explanation from Odom's that it was because they were not prepared? I won't say prepared. That's a bad way to phrase it, but they were tired and gassed at the end for a reason why he decided to go for two. I know, Chris, you heard him today on the MEAC coaches conference talk about that. How do you kind of frame it from your perspective?
I asked him that specific question. I said, "Do you think conditioning was a factor?" He said, and you can, if you guys check this out after the fact, we have some information of that on HBCUsports.com, our website. He said that you can't simulate game temperatures in practices because they pull you off the field if it gets too hot. And his explanation to me was that he felt that the guys were not ready for that level of heat that maybe was 80 in the press box. Maybe it was something else on the field. We don't know because, I wasn't there. You guys would know better than I do. But I will say that it's a bad sign when your offensive lineman and your star running back are discarding the contents of what they have eaten earlier in the day in the first quarter of the game. And the cramping situation, and I don't know how much of that has to do with practice temperatures or anything else, but I will say that I can buy it, but it's with a grain of salt that I buy it, because Florida A&M had to play in those same conditions. And I mean, this isn't a knock on Dawson Odoms, because he just had his team within a possession of beating the defending Black House national champs. But I will say that if Norfolk State was gassed, then Florida A&M was gassed as well, because they gave up the first two touchdowns of the game. You're on mute.
It wouldn't be a Monday night if I wasn't on mute. Jared Hoffman, do you buy Odom's explanation? You heard him say it. Nobody asked him about it in the press conference. He brought it up on his own after the game as the reason why he decided to go for two. But do you agree with what he said, or you think it was kind of unwarranted for him to go down that road?
Well, first of all, I just want to give a shout out to the trainer on Norfolk State sideline that went in there and cleaned up that puke, because guess who wouldn't have done that? I don't care how many towels you would have gave me. I'm not touching that. But anyway, I'm not going to sit here and try to discredit Dawson Odoms for saying what he said. He knows his team better than any of us possibly could. So if he saw something that may have indicated that they weren't in the right condition to be able to, go forth with whatever scenario, then that's his choice. And to his credit, he is able to live with it, and he stood on it like a man. Having said that, that is also on the coach to better prepare your team for the conditions that could come from your team. For example, we talk about on the NFL level how the Miami Dolphins can't win in cold conditions. You have to prepare your teams for any conditions they could potentially play in, whether it's the heat in this season in the fall, or later on in November when it starts to get cold. You have to be prepared for whatever conditions may come. You should have assistants on your team that tells you what the weather is and have your team out there prepared in those conditions, practicing however many days you are in town to be prepared for what could come. So I don't know if it was the weather that was the reason why they were exhausted and puking and whatever, but you have to have your team ready for whatever conditions they may play under. And some things you're not going to be able to prepare for. Sometimes players get sick. You can't do anything about that. But not having them ready for the weather, that's on the coaching, because you should know that that's going to happen.
Yeah, Odom saying like he was pretty much looking out for their well-being health-wise for player safety purposes by going for 2 there. But the thing from my standpoint is like there were still 6 minutes left in the game. So it wasn't like there was the very last play of the entire game. You still had a whole lot more football left to play. They didn't get the ball back on offense because the FAMU ran the clock out. But I mean, if I was a coach, I wouldn't probably say that. I would have said like I was going for the win right there, and not kind of blamed it on like my guys were gassed, even if they were gassed, because like there was still a lot of time left in the ball game, and guys still have to go out there and play.
Because think about what any athlete says whenever somebody says, "Oh, they didn't win. If they had been hurt, they would have won." You know what I'm saying? Anytime somebody says that, it ain't no excuses. But that's what they say. It ain't no excuses. We lost. If you really going to stand by your decision, just say that. It ain't, hey, we lost. It is what it is. On to the next one. Wait a minute. It's hot. Norfolk State is in Virginia, right? Ain't it hot there? I am from Maryland, very close to Virginia. So allow me to say Maryland hot is different from down south hot. That's humid. We ain't got too much humid up here. So, yes, it's hot in Virginia. It's hot in Maryland, but it's very different from down south Georgia or Florida heat.
Yeah, I mean, like none of us have ever played college football, and none of us played college football in the heat, so we can't relate. Exactly. But yeah, like we was thinking like the teams would be a little bit better prepared for. I mean, Florida A&M, they were able to survive. Like they were on the field longer than Norfolk State was actually. If you look at the box score, but as Karen Griffin said, Georgia Heat is a little bit different. So, and it really is. It was a little bit different. So both teams had to play in it, and too bad the Norfolk State they ran out of gas at the end apparently. But we're gonna move on to the last game of the night. Well, not night, but actually Sunday morning on the East Coast if you lived out there. Delaware State went out to Hawaii. It was a long trip in more ways than one to get to Hawaii, but they got to Hawaii. And despite what the final score said, they played a very competitive football game. In fact, at one point, that game was tied at halftime, 14 apiece. Chris, he stayed up, watched his alma mater fight and claw and scratch with the Rainbow Warriors. What do you make of their effort on Saturday night, Sunday morning?
Never let it be said that I don't do things for the love of the game, because me staying up until about 3:25 was absolutely for the love of the game on a Sunday morning, Jack. Trust and believe me. all kidding aside, I have no complaints. That Delaware State team showed up and played very well. I mean, if you guys remember the show Saturday morning, you will see that under, if you go back and see our Saturday morning live, I had nervous Delaware State alum under my name. I don't have that under here tonight because they played a very good football game. I think what's most important is Delaware State averaged giving up nearly 270 yards on the ground last year. They only had 100 in Hawaii, only had 128. And this is an FBS program. So if your run defense has cut down more than half of what they used to give up per game last year against an FBS opponent, then that's very encouraging for when you head back into FCS play later on this season, actually next week when they go to Sacred Heart. I think what's interesting is that 8 different receivers caught passes for Delaware State. That was something they didn't have last year. So it seems like Lee Hall has gone out into the portal, gotten some more guys. is trusting in a few more fellas. They didn't even have their starting running back. Marquise Gillis was scheduled to start, but he was inactive for a violation of team rules. So second string running back went in there, played very well. He scored the tying touchdown early in the second half. It was a very competitive game right up until the middle of the fourth quarter. And considering that this team missed their flight and needed 3 connecting flights to get to Honolulu, 3. And they're still getting 3 connecting flights because they were not in the MEAC coaches conference this morning because they were still making their way back from Hawaii. So all of that to me says that no, this Delaware State team is not going to be competitive for a MEAC championship, but they won't be absolutely moribund as they were in 2023. Still need to see some more improvement. We need more than 1 win, and we can't hang our hat on Virginia University of Lynchburg this year. They're not on the schedule, thank goodness. But they need to pick up some more W's, and if they can get at least a couple of Division I wins, which I think they will, there's cause for a hope for the future, especially considering that they survived that nightmarish travel scenario and still played a very competitive game against Hawaii.
Yeah, Jared, I don't know how much of that game you kind of caught after all the work we did on Saturday night and the post game stuff. But from what you saw or came across, what do you make of the effort by Delaware State?
Let me tell you what. When I saw Hawaii make their entrance, and they had a dude. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I don't know what the term for the garb that he was wearing, but that dude looked bigger than the Hawaiian football team. Whoever that was that walked them out. When I saw him leading them out the tunnel, I said, yeah, it's over for Delaware State. There's no way. There's no way. That I don't know if you guys have seen that post, but go to Hawaii football's Twitter page. They have a post where it says game day. And there's a dude who is huge, not wearing any shoes, and is holding this object. I don't know what it's called. That guy looked like everybody is calling him Maui from Moana. Like that's how big he was. He looked like the Rock's character from Moana in real life. But anyway, I didn't see the game. I was score watching. When I saw them getting only down 14-0 in the second quarter, I was a little bit surprised. I thought it was going well. Then I saw them score before the half. It was 14-7. Then they tied the game 14-14. I'm like, Delaware State is doing us proud. They weren't able to hold it in the end. Hawaii eventually, created that separation. But I think this is a win. People were expecting them to lose by 40. They only lost by, 21?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good. And as you said, they only held them to 123 rushing yards? That is a win. And I'm not sure if the term would be Samoans. I guess it would. But, yeah, that's all you could ask for Delaware State is to play hard. You don't have your first string running back in the game. You had to take 3 connecting flights, which I've done that before. I would not want to play a football game. I would not want to play a football game after taking 4 connected flights. I don't care. 3 connected flights. I don't care if it was a couple of days later. I'm not taking those 3 connected flights and then I got to get off the plane and then go to the field and practice for a game against Hawaii. So, yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, man. EA.
Yeah,
for those who didn't watch our stream on Saturday and you don't know about EA, he gave us some pretty good material. But just proud of Delaware State for playing hard. That's all I really got to say about that game.
Yeah, James Cozy, the head coach for Florida A&M, talked a lot about them dealing with and overcoming adversity. But it's safe to say no football program in week 0 overcame and dealt with more adversity and actually played well than Delaware State. So, yeah, congrats to them. I don't know what it means for their season. Maybe Chris be a little bit more positive about the program now. But it's definitely a good start to play that way, considering everything that happened to them leading up to the game. And apparently after the game, too. They're still not back in Delaware yet after playing Saturday night. So good for them. And now we're going to move on to. We finally got to hear what coaches had to say, both in the MEAC and the SWAC. They kind of do this thing when they have their coaches teleconferences or video conferences, whatever you want to call it, on the same day, just 1 hour apart in start time. So the MEAC went up first, and Chris, you were in on that. What did you make of some of the comments you heard from all the coaches, and kind of like what was the big takeaways from those sessions?
Well, we already discussed that Dawson Odom said that, what he said about conditioning. But what I did find interesting is that Howard is not going to name a starting quarterback until they hit the field Thursday night at Rutgers. And Larry Scott was very non-committal, we'll say, about who he didn't name anybody as having the upper hand in the battle. He just said that it's a competitive quarterback room. They all bring a level of maturity to the team. Nothing about who was going to be had the inside track. So we will find out who Howard's starting quarterback will be when the same time Rutgers does. And that probably benefits Howard, quite honestly, because Rutgers, they don't know who to prepare for. You still have Zachary Yeager, the North Carolina A&T transfer. You got some veteran guys that saw spot duty last year still in the mix. So it could be either one of those guys, but we don't know for sure, and we won't know until Thursday. Chennis Berry, he is definitely going to fit in the coaches conference just fine. He has a way. If you've never heard Chennis Berry speak before, you missing out. He literally just sits there and just commands. I don't know if he has the same office as Coach Pugh or not, but he looked as comfortable in that office as any of us sitting in our living rooms right now. And he just literally would he would spout one-liners. He would say things like, we plant the seeds, we plant the seeds. Now we putting the water on. Now it's time for him to bear fruit. He's a character, man, and he's a guy that you want to play for him. My college eligibility ran out 20-something years ago, and I got bad knees and bad ankles anyway, so I wouldn't be much use. But if Coach Berry said, "Hey, Chris, can you give me a couple downs? Put the ball down, Coach. Let's go." But yeah, he's a character. So is Trey Oliver, quite honestly. I told you guys that, I've known Trey Oliver since he was the defensive backs coach at Delaware State when I was a student reporter. I asked him about, the MEAC rankings. He said right off the rip, he said, "Man, we done with the rankings." he said, "I'm just going to let my team figure it out and play it on the field." He said that Walker Harris, there was never any competition. He was going to be a starting quarterback from jump. So that's not a surprise there. And he also said that he understands that winning the MEAC is going to take going undefeated. And he mentioned last year he had a really good comment last year. He said he'd rather be 1-5 in his non-conference games and then go undefeated in the MEAC. And that turned out to be the case. They won most of their non-conference games, and then Howard, jumped them from behind the Georgia Avenue McDonald's, and that was the end of that. So that was pretty much what I got from that. Also, Damon Wilson said that 2023 taught his team a lot about what it's going to take to finish and how this is going to be the first year that they have everything that they want in place. So he's looking forward to the season. They're at Hampton on Saturday, so I feel like that should be a really good game. So MEAC coaches, for the most part, we didn't get to hear from Coach Hull because, of course, they were still in transit. So, we'll probably hear from Coach Hull a little later on. But overall, feels like the MEAC coaches are very much ready for the season, and the ones that played this week, we'll find out how they do.
Thanks, Chris. I see somebody lurking among us. Does this person want to come on? He's just lurking. Oh, there he is.
Hey, I was waiting for the perfect opportunity. Hey, I'm going to keep this real short because I got a plate of spaghetti waiting for me. EA, I see you talking trash. Don't you sit up here and pretend like while you were watching that game, your butthole didn't just get tight because you realized you down 14-0. I know you were there. So you my boy and all. Look, we gonna have to break bread somewhere. I don't know where you live. You're a good dude. But don't you sit up here and act like you wasn't sweating and tight and all that stuff. Because I know you were. All right? So you won. You won by 1 point. But just know, my friend Dawson Odoms coached a hell of a game. That he was determined, and y'all thought I was just making stuff up. But I'm just saying, EA, congratulations, you got this one. But I'm telling you, man, if there's a rematch, and it's very possible, I don't know if you'll be able to come out again with against my friend Dawson Odoms. That's all I got to say. I'm about to go and get this kid. I'll talk to you.
That's a great Ken Rashad right there, man. Continuing his rivalry with EA. EA, if you got a response, man, let us know. Let us know, man. Wherever you are, let us know. Yeah, but Ken Rashad, good friend Dawson Odoms, came up just a little bit short. Too bad for that. I forgot what I was going to say now. Ken just threw the whole course of the show off, man.
We were. I recapped the MEAC coaches conference. So I guess you want to talk about the SWAC now.
Oh yeah, the SWAC. Yeah. So yeah, the SWAC coaches, all 14 of them talked. I'm not going to give you everything that all 14 coaches said because it'll be too long, and I don't remember all of it. But you can watch the entire thing on our YouTube channel. It's up right now. Every single coach in this session, what they said about their team and upcoming game, you can find that on our YouTube channel. We recorded every single week throughout the football season, so you can be able to find what your coach or your favorite program had to say. But the highlights for me was a lot of coaches, except for maybe a couple, named their starting quarterback. For example, Noah Barton's going to start for Southern. Terrence Graves made that announcement actually early in the week, but he made it official on Monday. There are going to be multiple quarterbacks being played at Alcorn State, at Alabama A&M, and at Texas Southern because most of these schools are playing FBS opponents, and that's a really good time for coaches to get a good long look at some of their personnel. Jacoby Morgan was named starting quarterback at State. He's going to play against ULM. And ironically enough, Jackson State almost beat ULM 3 years ago. Different roster, different cast of characters. But TC Taylor, their head coach, did say you could take some things away from that football game, despite the fact only a couple players are left from that football team who played ULM. ULM got a totally different roster, new head coach. And quite frankly, they're one of the worst teams in FBS, so they can be had. The most interesting thing I got out of it today was an exchange between myself and Alonzo Hampton, where he mentioned that, he didn't really want to have to play Arkansas the first game of the season, but it's on the schedule, so they got to play Arkansas on the schedule, first game out in Fayetteville. And so I asked him, okay, do you want a little bit more control over your schedule? Because he seemed to be not really wanting to know how to play an SEC team the first game out. He said, well, I will play them the second game out, but remember the first game. So I asked him, do you want to have more control over or input in your schedule? He was like, no, that's the AG's job. We just go out there and spot the ball. We're going to play anybody, anytime, anywhere, any place. Kind of rest of promo almost. But that was real fun. Also talked to Eddie Robinson Jr. about expectations going into the season. As you know, Alabama State is picked to win the SWAC East, and their first game of the season against North Carolina Central, who's been picked to win the MEAC and go back to Celebration Bowl. That game has been billed as a matchup of number ones. And Eddie Robinson said that game will be a litmus test for their ball club, but he didn't want to get too much caught up in the sauce with all the chatter around that game and kind of what it means for their program. He just wanted to go out there and try to put in the best performance possible to try to win a football game and not be too concerned about proving anything to anybody. But I really respected the candid answers that James Cozy gave today. He talked about, his first time out as head coach. He's learning a lot on the fly. He mentioned that a lot of times during the game, their best 11 personnel wasn't always on the field. And it wasn't because of, the game plan, just, how the game just played out. That sometimes, when you're first your head coach, you're doing the communication, trying to get things settled and aligned properly. So at some points, all 11 of their best players were on the field at certain points. But he said that will be corrected next week, as well as emphasis on like them fixing their run defense, which gave up a lot of yards to Norfolk State. So on Saturday, he's real comfortable with Richardson as a quarterback. He kind of felt like after that first couple of drives, he really settled in and played a really good ball game. So he's not concerned about the offense. He says like he doesn't know what South Carolina State's going to do. He does figure, though, they're going to try to run the ball, see if they're going to support that the same way Norfolk State did, so he's prepared for that. He also kind of respected what the head coach of Prairie View said, Bubba McDowell, about they really believe this first game out, the Labor Day Classic against his good friend Chris Dixon, Texas Southern, can be a jump-off point for the rest of their season and set a tone for it, because as you guys know, they won the SWAC West after previous year coming so close to winning it but didn't. They got to the title game this past season, lost to FAMU. It's one of their goals to win the SWAC, and he said like this game the outcome of it will go a long way in determining their path for the regular season. So kind of surprised with that one, but those are some of the things I kind of learned today, and we'll have more to say about these matchups as the weeks go on. In fact, on Wednesday night, we'll come back with a show to break down all the matchups starting on Thursday through Saturday through the weekend. Yeah, so I'm excited, man. And a shout out to Doc Holliday, HBCU Overdrive. He asked a lot of really good questions to coaches. Collaborate. I know like Henry Shad heard him on the teleconference today and was wondering to know like if we can like reach out to him and like do a show us together, just break bread and talk football. Like he really performed really well. Asked a lot of good questions.
Did we just get the Kendrick Marshall though?
I think we did.
Dang.
He was on a roll too. We'll see if Kendrick comes back, but yeah.
Just to give my just to give my recap of the interesting things from the call. First of all, about Howard keeping their quarterback pick close to the hip. I think that's the best decision. Granted, you're going to have to perform when you get out there, but I think that's the best possible solution. I think Howard has the offense to be able to do some damage against anybody, especially Rutgers. We saw last year that how well they performed against Northwestern. So they have what it takes to potentially be upset-minded. And if they got a quarterback who that they feel like can get the job done, Zach Yeager coming from North Carolina A&T, I'm not familiar with how much he played. I know he did play a significant amount at North Carolina A&T, but I can't remember if he was the starter there or not. But if he is the choice, he would be a good choice for them. As far as the teams that named starting quarterbacks, Jackson State with Jacoby and Morgan, I think that was pretty I wouldn't say that was cut and dry, but he was the guy that has the most reps with them so far. So it's kind of not surprising. Prairie View A&M naming Lucas Coley their starting quarterback. For those who are not familiar with him, as I wasn't, I did a little bit of research on him. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. So we'll see, if he can live up to that rating. We all know that Prairie View A&M is not exactly the passing school. They're more of a run offense, so I'd assume with him being their starting quarterback that he's more of a dual threat guy. So we'll see what comes of that. As far as Alabama State saying that this will be a litmus test for them, absolutely it will. And we'll get it, as Kendrick said, we'll get into the actual preview of the game as the days go on. But this absolutely is a litmus test for them. It's a litmus test for them. It's a litmus test for North Carolina Central. There's a lot of questions specifically for me, about Andrew Body and if he'll be able to manage the expectations of people's expecting you to win rather than, the not sure if you are good enough to win. He's in a situation now where Alabama State is expected to win. He has the talent to get it done. I'm wondering if he can handle the pressure, and we've seen him kind of have those mental lapses in games. He's had a lot of games where he's had high interception totals. He's had those mistake riddled games, so we'll see how he commands the offense because he has the defense to back him up and cover a multitude of sins for him. So absolutely. And in North Carolina Central saying that Walker Harris was going to, we all know that. We all knew Walker Harris was the best kept secret to Walker Harris. I'm excited to see Walker Harris in a full season. He played incredible against Mississippi Valley State. That's not hard to do when you're playing against Mississippi Valley State. No disrespect, but you're not the best football team. So, I think that game will be a good, to get his foot in the water, just tapping his foot in the water. But now he's going all in. He's going all in, and he has a pretty good supporting group around him. He has Jamari Taylor in the backfield. So not sure what the receivers are looking like with Devin Smith now being gone. I can't remember if he entered the transfer portal, if he graduated already, but no, he entered the transfer portal. I know that for sure. Ryan McDaniel has been gone for the past couple of years. So I'm curious to see what I believe EJ Hicks is also gone. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure about that. But so I'm curious to see who the top receivers will be that he will be connecting with throughout the season. So this is spoiler alert. We're very much the most excited to see Orange Blossom Classic. That's the Celebration Bowl preview. That is going to tell us all we need to know about both of those teams who have some lofty expectations going into the season. And one thing I'm curious about with Damon Wilson, him saying that he feels like he has everything he needs in Morgan State. So he must know something about that offense that we don't, because we haven't seen that offense at full strength. Is it Taj Smith? Is that his last name? I know his first name is Taj, but we saw him in some small doses last year. He played pretty good. That's not saying much when you compare him to the other quarterbacks that played. Again, not trying to be rude, but the quarterback play was just not there. And now that you no longer have Trevion Pratt, who has graduated, yet you still have J.J. Davis, who miraculously still has eligibility. He seems like forever ago that he was the MEAC preseason player of the year, but the MEAC player of the year. He actually won the conference player of the year, but so he's still there, so I'm curious to see what that offense looks like, because Damon Wilson is not going to say that he has everything he needs if he doesn't truly believe that he has everything he needs. So Morgan State may live up to that dark horse pick that many expect them to be. So, man, I'm just ready to get the ball rolling. I'm ready for Thursday to come so we can see the start of the games. I'm ready for Saturday, and I'm especially ready for Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, we're all ready for the weekend to get here. We got a little taste of it on Saturday night, but we get the full boat this weekend, starting on Thursday night and all through Sunday. But I will say, Ken Rashad and Grambling fans, I think y'all might have one with Mickey Joseph. Like, I kind of left him out in my little spiel about the SWAC coaches speaking today, but he seems to be like a no-nonsense guy. Like, he said, like, if you're out there and you're BSing around and making mistakes, I'm going to pull you out the game. I don't care. And he talked a lot about – he mentioned several times about the players needing to learn structure, that they needed to be introduced to that. I don't know if there's a shot at the previous administration under Hugh Jackson or, him just thinking that they're young people who need, like, guidance, but he really was hell-bent on mentioning how much that they needed structure within the program. So that's interesting to see. And also Raymond Woody for Bethune-Cookman. He has a sense of urgency. I don't know how it's going to play out when the season starts, but he told his players, like, I brought in a lot of guys this season. Don't be comfortable in your spot because there's some players on the team that are going to take your spot, including myself. So he kind of sees that, like, he doesn't want to repeat of last season where they woefully underperformed. So he kind of is motivated and it has a lot of determination, using the word from Ken Rashad. to try to right this ship really quick because he understands like there's not much time to try to wait 3-4 years to try to get it right. He wants to get this right now. And you saw in the offseason with the way they recruited. He feels like the recruits they have now will change the dynamic of the team. He says they're better on both lines right now. They're a little bit more athletic than they were before last season. So we'll see how it goes for Bethune-Cookman, but he is really excited about the direction the football program going, despite the fact he may not have the demeanor of someone who's excited. That's what he says is have me thinking that like he's definitely like really intent on Bethune-Cookman not being a doormat this season.
Yeah, just to talk about Bethune-Cookman a little bit. What's interesting about Bethune-Cookman, it's been forever since they have gone 4 straight seasons without a winning season. So when you talk about that sense of urgency, that comes from their culture. This is a team that's not used to losing. You know what I mean? We forget that because they haven't looked as good in the SWAC than they have in the MEAC. But this is a team that doesn't like to lose. And they assembled a team that on paper looks like they are going on the right track. They look like they are ready to turn that corner. Now, again, they have a lot of competition, especially in the SWAC East with Bama State, Jackson State, and Florida A&M. So it's a lot to overcome to win that division. But them going 6-6 or 7-5 is a win, especially with the way that they have looked in their first couple of seasons. But losing four straight losing seasons is not ordinary for Bethune-Cookman if you are familiar with them. I don't think it's happened since like the mid-90s. So I'm expecting big things from Bethune-Cookman. I'd be surprised if they don't at least go 6-6.
Yeah, like if they go 6-6, 7-5, that probably puts not only them in competition to win the SWAC East, but that probably makes Raymond Woody Jr. a candidate to be SWAC Coach of the Year. I think if they do that. But we'll see though. Like season starts week 1 starts on Thursday. It goes throughout Labor Day weekend. So we'll be here to cover it all for you guys. Have a show on Wednesday to preview all the games coming up this weekend, where we're gonna try to maybe do some post-game stuff on Saturday night. If you be with us, we thank you for listening tonight and watching. Always remember to hit the like button, subscribe to get more videos like this, so you can follow Black College football throughout the regular season on here and on our website. I'm Kendrick.
Wait, Kendrick, don't forget. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and become either a level 1, level 2, or level 3 subscriber. And, to be able to, for $4.99 a month, for just a cup of coffee a day, shouts out to Sally Struthers, you can get all the important HBCU sports information you can find if you become a level 1, level 2, or level 3 subscriber to this YouTube channel. Just want to put that out there.
Thanks, Chris. Ken, which I will thank you very much for doing that because I forgot. Yeah, be a subscriber. Don't forget, like in future episodes, use Super Chat feature where you can actually donate us money directly, and your comments will be highlighted on our show. And as always, feel free to comment like EA does. Plenty of comments that EA does. If you want to comment about Ken Rashad, feel free to do that. We welcome those too. Once again, it's Kendrick. That's Jared. I'm Chris, and we're out.